Good evening and welcome to another special edition of the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman, and we are going to break our normal format again to bring you the latest developments in the police brutality across the nation and the killings of 3 police officers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have a panel discussion on this matter. My guests, community leaders Mark Clemens, Lamont Record, and Willie Preston are my guests. But first, we'll begin with Lamont Records. He has been on the forefront of police brutality and also been protesting in regards to police brutality in different shapes, forms. But we have some breaking news because Jamal was incarcerated due to an alleged he punched the police. Could you tell us the story unedited in your own words? What happened to Jamal and why the picture, courtesy of the Chicago Sun-Times, have him swinging at the police officer, but you said there's a different vantage point.
That's right. So thank you so much for having me here on the show. Community organizer Lamont Record. So as me being one of the organizers for the Taste of Chicago shutdown, the entire situation which just falls from the police end and especially from Chicago Tribune end. So due to the situation with Jamal standing on the barricade, he was standing on the barricade and the officer told him numerous times to get down from the barricade, and Jamal wouldn't get down. He refused to get down. So as he was on the barricade, the officer literally pulled him down. I recorded the entire video. So as he pulls him down, the picture from Chicago, sometimes the Chicago Tribune, one of the two, it shows him throwing a punch to the officer, but actually Jamal Green was falling as the officer pushed him down on the ground. See, well, my thing is that with that Officer Devereaux, that pulled him down from the barricade, as an officer, he has poor judgment, because when you think strategically about the situation, why would you pour down a organizer, an activist that's trying to give direct orders and instructions to a crowd, a very angry crowd that's fulfilled with so many different emotions against the police, like just the entire police department? Why would you pull down an organizer that's trying to give direct orders and to keep the crowd under control? Now, when you think about it, if he would have stayed up there, everything would have been it would have been fine. You know, he just would have been giving orders to the protesters. But when you actually think about it, if we was actually controlling a violent crowd, if we actually was in a violent protest, then things would have got really out of hand, and then some people really would have tried to start to disarm the police at the time. But as him getting pulled down from the barricade, he didn't punch the officer, he didn't swing at the officer. The officer pulled him down from the barricade, and then as Jamal was falling on the ground, it just shows that he was looking like he was punching, but he was just reaching, trying to stand up from not falling.
Anita Alvarez has pressed numerous charges against Jamal, and you guys had to raise bail $35,000 to get him out. How's he doing? How's he coping? And tell us about how you guys raised the money and what happened to Anita Alvarez, which you guys protest tremendously regarding to get her out. But do you think she's being vengeful in regards to throwing the gauntlet without seeing what you have?
Well, when it comes to Anita Alvarez, well, I could say former Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez, because I believe we got her out the office already. Even though she's putting charges on him on 5 felony charges, we did raise the $35,000 within about 2 days, just from people like from all across the state was helping us raise the money to get him out. So with him being prosecuted by Anita Alvarez, I think that's pretty challenging, because Anita Alvarez personally knows Jamal, and you know, it's us fighting this oppressed system that runs on corruption and racism and hatred. You know, they know we're a target. They're after us, especially as leaders and organizers, especially being African American young men that's rising up and taking actions on situations we care about. So when it comes to Anita Alvarez, she's going to try her best and her ability to make sure Jamal is behind bars or anything, because of the simple fact that she know we are after her. And it's not even just Anita Alvarez. It's the same thing with Rahm Emanuel. All these politicians and elected officials that we are after, to actually have them to resign, they know we after them. But it's the simple fact that they're going to try their best to get to us to make us sit down. Like I visited Jamal. I think it was about today's Monday. I visited him 2 days ago. He was doing great. He's on house arrest right now, but that's just what the system is going to try to do. Once you fight this oppressed system, they would try everything in their ability and their power to sit you down and make you just stop doing what you're doing because they are afraid of us African Americans rising up.
But you knew this was about to happen.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You knew that you guys going to have a record.
Oh yeah.
So
and then that's us putting our lives on the line.
But by doing this, you knew you're gonna make some type of sacrifice.
Yep, that's right.
So could it be logic or saying, you know what, I don't want this brother to get a record because that's going to damage his life because he's going to be a police target. Right now, you are a target and Jamal is on the target.
Right.
That means if you drive, they punch up your license plate, they see your name, knowing that you're a community leader, they're going to pull you over numerous times. How you feel about being a target?
I feel as if I'm actually doing something right. So with me being a target, I've been arrested 6 times since the release of the Laquan McDonald video being released from the Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Anita Alvarez. Ever since then, I knew I'd become the target from me staring down the police. It just became just all across the United States. So even though I've been arrested 6 times, and this is actually Jamal's first time being arrested throughout the movement, I've put my body in, and I can speak for Jamal as well, and actually I can speak for other leaders and organizers that's been arrested the entire movement, like throughout the entire movement. We have put our bodies on the line. We put our lives on the line. We has been on the front line since this battle in November. Even though with me being a target, I feel as if I know a lot of people look up to me because of the work that I do, but I know it will get hard. I know times will get hard when it comes to a situation with the police, and especially if I get into any ordeals with the police and it's off cameras, it can be way worse. But with me sitting in police custody, and even with Jamal sitting in police custody, I don't care who's sitting in police custody. If you're out here doing something peaceful and you're doing it for the right cause and you're fighting for something you believe in, I refuse to be silent, because silent is complicity and silent equals violence. I refuse to sit back and let anybody sit in police custody knowing that they're out here fighting for their rights and they could become another Sandra Bland. With Jamal Green being in police custody, it's like I could not sit down and just sit back and do nothing. Like I could not find any way in my power or my ability to help Jamal, because I know what the police can do to you while in police custody. Even with me, when I was in police custody, they took me to 3 different police stations for no apparent reason. And after I left the first police station, they put me in a paddy wagon. With like not the paddy wagon, but like the van that I can see through, like in the front windows. So they put me in the back of the paddy wagon, and then one of the organizers came up to the car and say, "Do you have Lamont record?" And then the police tell him, "Oh no, he's not in our custody." Then he goes inside of the police station and asks them, "Do you have Lamont record?" They say, "Oh, he's not in police custody." So just even putting my body on the line for this, it just goes to show you that I'm fearless. I'm not scared to die for my people. Like this is what I was like born to do, I should say. Like if I put myself in this situation to fight for these people, fight for their rights and fight for my rights, then by all means I'm gonna go like all the way with it. And if it takes me about the police, be a target by Rahm Emanuel or any elected official, I guess it is what it is. But it's me. It's as if I know what I put myself up against.
You've been shown numerous times in police officers' face. Now, let's do the flip side of this. Are the cameras capturing the whole entire story when you're in the police face? Or are they taking just bits and pieces out? What led you to get in, like, face to face with that officer?
So, and back in November when it first began, when I got in the officer's face, there was nothing like going through my mind at the moment. And actually, Fox News has the full video of me standing in the office, and it's like 12 minutes long. So when I was in that officer's face, what really made me get in his face was because he was the only officer out there with a baton that was like, it was a thick baton made of wood.
So what is it threatening to people?
It just really caught my attention at the moment. So me staring down that officer, I was just looking in his eyes and like, you know what? Just as not only as a white officer, but I think as the full police department in the city of Chicago, you guys do not understand what us African American young men and women go through as today's youth generation. Even when it comes to the stop and frisk or excessive force or anything when it comes to the police, they do not understand it, especially when it comes to the police in Chicago. Constantly and continually forget what that badge consists of, and public safety will look different now in Chicago. Me standing in that office, I wasn't paying attention to cameras, wasn't paying attention to people trying to pull me around. I wasn't worried about any of them things at the time. But at that moment when I was staring him down, I wanted him to look in my eyes and actually feel and understand what a young African American young man, as far as educated, go through in the city of Chicago, especially being raised on the south side of Chicago. I wanted that officer to understand. But when you look at that video, it's as if I owned that officer. That officer was scared. He was fearing me. He didn't know what to do. So it's me constantly staring down police officers, and even though I cut my hair, even though me constantly staring down police officers, they're like, "Oh, it's just a game or it's just a joke." You can't play games with real life situations, and then obviously the police in Chicago doesn't understand.
Mark, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. You have a different story. Your detailed account with John Burge, you actually lived it. You actually witnessed it. You actually was the victim of it. Could you describe to intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station listeners what happened in your police brutality case?
Well, it is highly known. Me being a 16-year-old child, I was taken to 3900 South California in Chicago back in June of 1981. First of all, knew nothing about torture. Second of all, I knew that something was wrong because I had witnessed the police officers at free will walking around the police station drinking alcohol. So I asked one of the detectives if I could contact my parents, and the detective told me no. And from that point on, I was shipped from room to room while they were bringing in individuals whom a woman in the community named Ramona Patton had identified to police sources to try to collect a reward. Once the individuals were brought into the police station, I seen one of them by the name of Tommy Jackson, and they beat him, man, like a dog. And he was screaming and he was hollering that, he had not did anything, but the police was still just kicking him and beating him and slamming him and telling him he knew what he had done. Well, a detective came into the room who was Caucasian, and he identified himself as Detective John McCann. He told me that he had been sent to help me. He asked me, why would a brother by the name of James Robinson say that we set the fire? And I told the police officer, I said, well, if James said that he set the fire, maybe he set the fire. So I left it alone. Maybe the police officer took that to be a smart aleck response, but he got up and he hit me in my chest. And when he hit me in my chest, it was like hitting the button in the middle of your chest. It knocks the wind out of you. So I went through that for about maybe a minute at best while he was calling me these nice, good, fancy words such as nigger boy, nigger MF. And he beat me in my arms in the chest area, smacked me around. And what he did do, he set a chair directly in front of my feet. And that chair was to prevent me from kicking up if I needed to kick up, because both of my hands were handcuffed to rings that was attached to the wall. So what he did do, he grabbed my genitals and he squares them. Well, the first time I told him, yeah, I'll cooperate. That was to cease the mistreatment. They brought in a guy who identified himself as Kevin more. And he did tell me that he worked for the people. Well, me being naive as to working for the people, and I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, well, I am a person. I told him, I said, well, listen here, I didn't commit the crime. My parents have never been contacted, and I need help. He left out of the room, packed his little belongings, left out of the little station room, and he went and consulted with the same detectives whom I was complaining against. McCann then, shortly thereafter, returned back to the room and accused me of trying to get him in trouble with his bosses. So the whole entire beating, it all repeated itself again, but it was done more so now as a way more aggressive is the word. My genitals was grabbed in squares. I did repeat a confession that was told to me by the police. As a result of repeating the confession, the very next day I went to court. There was an African American judge by the name of Walton, James Walton. He was the chief juvenile judge. And I told him, I said, listen here. I said, they grabbed my wee-wee and they squeezed it. I didn't commit the crime. So the judge, he laughed. you know. He did recommend that I speak with the court-appointed attorney who they had assigned, where I did speak with them. I basically remained incarcerated a whole nother year until the trial. I was given two Cook County public defenders, one who had 1 year of experience, the other one 2 years of experience. The end result is they never investigated the case. So whatever aspects that the state wanted to bring forward, they had nothing to counter with. Man, it was a no-brainer. The whole neighborhood had witnessed who actually committed the crime. But due to the fact that I was poor, now incarcerated, and didn't live from that particular area, I just sat there. And I sat there for 28 years of my life, being freed in 2009 of August. You know, returning back into society, my whole perspective was to find out why in the world people like John Burge had not been held accountable, meaning put in prison for their conduct. Well, there are all sorts of laws that are in favor to the police. And those police officers only had a 10-year statute of limitations on a charge of torture. Today, there is no statute of limitations thanks to Danny Davis reintroducing legislation to get no statute of limitations. But John Burge and every last one of his officers who tortured people was never, ever held accountable. I was a kid, 16 years of age, CFS. Where was the people that was put into play to help children that was taken to police stations? Where were they at to help me? There's a Marcus Wiggins that was tortured in 1991. This is no secret. It's public document. The city of Chicago gave the family nearly $100,000 and basically told them to shut up. This is a 13-year-old child who is taken to a police station, and there's electrical devices connected to his fingers and to his body. But where is DCFS? And that is still in the year of 2016, a question that I am out to seek to find out. Here it is that I work in the field of criminal justice, and I watch each and every day people lose their children based off of accusations. So you mean to tell me that in 1981, I'm talking about, it was the most notorious year for tortures at Area 3 violent crimes, that it never raised a flag? John Burge was fired in 1993. It never raised a flag, even in the face of many juveniles coming out and stating that they had been tortured. No judge never even looked at this. No elected official ever looked at this. So what I began to do last year is to compile data of juveniles that had been taken down to the police station. And I'm basically trying to use a law and which was incorporated to help sexual offenders up under the Catholic Church. They have a 32-year statute of limitation. It has to be some type of actions of accountability taken against the city of Chicago. I have a problem with the mayor giving me taxpayer dollars, and then guess what? He identified the officers, but there's nothing that he can do.
Why is that?
Why? Because there are laws and there are policies. I call them while the people were feeling good under the Clinton administration. They were out here partying. They was having a ball. They said that Clinton would be the only thing black in that White House that we would ever even know. And Clinton was passing out laws to make the guys' lives inside the prisons miserable. Those guys in prison, literally, and I feel for every crime victim out here, but literally you can put somebody in a prison for 5 years and they have paid 40 years of the time compared to the way that those prisons are structured now today. They're torture. So now we're torturing individuals and we're sending them back out here to this society and we're telling them to, hey, you can survive. Survive how? There's no jobs. All of these laws were passed between the years of 1991 and 1998 to cripple individuals, to take away all of its opportunity out here in society. I see brothers each and every day who get out of prison that's exonerated. And guess what? Neither one of them is working a job. So we have to really raise a serious question as to what is going on. What is going on? Was John Burge some superhero to these people or what? Because John Burge cost the city of Chicago over $112 million, with just recently the city of Chicago agreeing to pay out an additional $3 million in dealing with John Burge torture. This means that this year alone, we have paid out $18.6 million to deal with the dirty cops in the city of Chicago. So now we're crying about the CTA. We're crying about public schools. But in reality, we're giving all the money away.
Willie, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. Willie Preston, you're involved in policy. You're involved with politics. You hear these two compelling stories. What policies come to mind? What you think should happen, in your opinion?
Well, I think should happen exactly what they just related to. It all boils down to economics at the end of the day. Over half, and it's just not a black and white, it's not a black and white issue. It's not a black and brown issue. Half Americans today make less than $30,000 a year. That's ridiculous. And wherever you see these type of conditions where we have mass poverty, you see violence on the increase. This is worldwide. So there's a few things that we can do right now that are on the table to address a couple of issues, specifically since we're here to talk about police brutality. So CPAC, for instance, is an incredible piece of legislation that actually brings whole the community and the police department. There's a lot of talk about building trust within the community. Well, CPAC, what's so special about that particular piece of legislation, the city ordinance, is trust is not built into that policy. Accountability is. And that's exactly what we have been fighting for. Lamont, you know, when we stood on those blocks downtown and shut down every store and every block, what we were doing that for was not just simply for Laquan McDonald, but it was for accountability for Laquan McDonald. We were standing out there on those blocks for Alton Sterling, although we didn't know him yet, because we knew the system was based in a place where it was going to be no accountability for Laquan, for Alton, for Willie Preston, for Lamont Record, for any one of us. So when we talk about solutions, we need to start thinking about how we structure our departments, how we structure our public safety policies. CPAC, for instance, will allow the community to hold the police department accountable. So I look at these things. I'll go back to a second for economic policies. Right now, we have about 80,000 abandoned properties in the city of Chicago. 80,000 properties, blight throughout the city. Now, we know that large parts of these are concentrated on the south and west sides of Chicago, where black folks made home, the Great Migration. Now we got a great remigration, where folks are running from the city now because and if they do find that they can't even survive on it. So on their off day, they're heading to the aid office to get public welfare. And Bruce Brown is telling them they're not going to have much of that coming. So what we have to do is start the people first. And if that's not going to happen, because the current political establishment, they are hell-bent on taking large sums of money from multinational corporations like Walmart. And so it's not your elected official who is actually acting in good faith for you, and what matters to you and what matters to me and Ms. Johnson. It's what matters to Walmart. They are writing our laws, and their laws are in contravention with what is necessary for us to have a meaningful, safe, and productive life. So this is going to continue to happen until we have a truly remarkable political revolution where we have a new breed of leadership at the city council, at Cook County government, and at the state government. And this is bigger than Democrats versus Republicans. Let's be clear. This is about a political philosophy. Neoliberalism is being executed by both Democrats and Republicans. Let's be frank. If you grew up in Chicago, if you live in Chicago, and if you grew up in Illinois or Cook County, you know that you cannot pass gas in any of those political bodies without Democrat support. So let's be honest with this. If we have supermajorities in the state house, if we have everybody who is at least going to claim to be a Democrat inside the city council and a Cook County Board of Commissioners, then why is it that folks are hurting so bad? Why is it that we have the most historical school closures in America, in Chicago? There are folks in Republican cities and towns, and I'm not a Republican, so let me be clear, I don't want to be mistaken, but there are folks in Republican areas who are getting treated more fairly in terms of public education. These are so-called minorities, African American, Latinos, Asian folks, who are getting treated fairly, who are being invested in more than they are in Democratic strongholds like the city of Chicago. So right now we have a Cook County ordinance on the table right now.
What is the ordinance?
It's called the Responsible Business Act. And what the Responsible Business Act would do, it'll affect, there's a lot of companies, but it'll affect only 69 or maybe 70 major corporations that operate within Cook County, Walmart, and a few other big boys like them. And basically, it's actually what's at the heart of this ordinance is saying, look, you operate inside Cook County. You employ the most people inside Cook County as a private business, and you are doing extraordinarily well, historically well. Hordes of millions and billions of dollars you guys are benefiting off the backs of the community while they're struggling. What we're saying is you're going to pay folks a livable wage, or you're going to be taxed. And with that tax, the revenue is going to go to things that the whole community benefits from. The Cook County Hospital is one place. The revenue generated from the Responsible Business Act will go towards the Cook County Hospital. Pretrial services that'll bring down the Cook County jail population. The sheriff, Tom Dart, has been screaming for this. Actually, it's not just the Cook County jail, as we also know. It's also home to one of the largest psych wards because the mayor has cut down on mental health institutions across the city of Chicago. So it'll also go toward affordable housing, which are all of the things that we need to actually bring back a community that's thriving, an economy that's thriving for folks. We don't need anymore to be champion causes for hedge fund owners or venture capitalists or multinational corporations. We need people like Lamont, who's 17. I think you got a birthday coming up, don't you?
January.
Okay, he'll be 18 soon. But what is the prospect that Lamont's going to be a homeowner? What is the prospect that Lamont is going to really truly benefit from this economy? And what are the odds that Lamont is going to be a gun victim? What are the odds that Lamont will be robbed? When we have a society that's based like that, it is absolutely crucial that lawmakers actually target these type of issues, these economic issues that ultimately turn to public safety issues. And right now, that's not going to happen, because in order for Mr. Petition A to become elected again, he has to raise large amounts of money so that he can send mailers and talk about how much their teeth, or how their kids don't like them, stuff that has nothing to do with why people are down in the city of Chicago every day. And who else has that money? Large, super wealthy corporations and individuals who actually don't share the same values as us. And let's be clear about that. So what my solution is that from and Lamont, you and I have had this discussion, needs to go further. From our uprising, from seeing what is happening to us, we have to transition from protesting to actual political organizing, because these people do not share our values, and they are literally causing the conditions that are in fact killing us.
I'm glad you bring that point up, because you guys, Lamont,
Yeah.
Mr. Clement, you guys been out there in the forefront. You guys been protesting, and the number one thing is protesting what? You're protesting accountability, but at the end of the day, you're not holding Black leadership accountable, like the Urban League, the Black Ministers, Rainbow Push, the NAACP, the Black Caucuses, accountable for not setting standards when police brutality happens or occurs in our community. So why not hold the Black Caucus accountable? When you talk about mental health issues, Willie, well, I can name you several stories. One pops out that a guy punched Alderman Walter Barnett in the face. Mental health. Now he's for it because he got punched in the face. I can go down the line and say, okay, can we redirect our issues and make the police curb? You're not going to stop police brutality. Let's get real here. You only can curb the problem here. Just like violence. So I said this years ago on my show. Somebody said we need to stop violence. And I told the person, you cannot stop violence. You only can curb it.
Well, I want to say something to that.
But let me finish my question, though. My question is to Lamont, then I go down to you. Lamont, can you actually put these Black politicians that talk about, like I said last week, neck bone, collard greens, candy yam issues in the Black community, but say yes sir, no sir in City Hall? Can you force them to make policies to help curb the problem? What Willie just said.
Actually, I think we can force them. But when you think about the system that we are fighting, especially the political system in the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, especially Cook County, we barely got Black politicians.
Why is that?
We barely have Black politicians.
What you mean by that?
I mean what I say. That we barely have any Black politicians. Let's say Kim Foxx, for example. Kim Foxx says she's going to do this and that for the African American community. Or I'm going to fix up this. I'm going to fix up that. She can say all of them things and just get the trust from the American people in Chicago throughout Cook County. But once you get in office, what is it exactly you're going to do? When you look at these politicians, you don't see many Black politicians. You don't see many African American politicians, because they know once you get an African American into office, what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to help the African American community. But the system is a oppressed system to get rid of African Americans. That's why the political system don't allow a lot of Black politicians to get into office. That's why we have a lot of racism built in our political system, because these people know what the system is up against. We even know what we're up against when it comes to fighting this system. But even though when it comes to protesting, everything we protest about is way more than protest. And I always say this: when our people, leaders, organizers, and activists going to start sitting at the table and start writing legislative bills and policies to actually start making changes within the community, within the city, protesting isn't going to get us anywhere if we don't do it strategically and we don't plan and organize for it. Even with the boycotts, we can boycott all we want, but what is it that we're bringing back to our communities? Ain't nothing going to change until we start bringing it back to our communities. That's why it is time.
But why boycott? in the first place? You're just taking up space. You're holding up traffic. Why boycott the situation if you know it's policy and legislation?
So let's say this. The last time we did a boycott, sales went down up to 50% and the crime rate went down up to 40%. As in sales and $3 billion on a magnificent amount on Black Friday. If we know when we make our money, we spend our money. If you're in the African-American community on the south side of Chicago, and I don't care if you're in Chapman, Roseland, Austin, I don't care where you're at, as long as you're on the south and west side of Chicago, in the African-American community, if I tell Willie or I ask Willie or Mark, I want to go to Mariano's, I want to go to the Jordan store, I need to go to Food Life, I want to go to the Water Tower, where do I have to go spend my money? Who do I go give my money to? The white people downtown. Am I right? When I give them my money, where does that money go? It goes to CPD. CPD, it's time to abolish the police. It is time to defund CPD. 40% of the city's operation budget goes to CPD. But if anything, if we know that we spend our money on the south and west side and we got to go downtown for where all the white rich people at, where they don't live in poverty at, because the people downtown and the people on the north side, they don't live on poverty and slavery wages. That's why they don't have so many killers on their side of the city or in their communities. They don't have so many killings is because they don't make poverty and slavery wages. They make enough money where they say, oh, I'm not going to go rob somebody for iPhone 6. If anything, I'm going to go buy me one. I'm going to go buy Mark one, and I'm going to go buy Willie one. See, on African-American side in our communities, think about it like this. Let's say if I go downtown and I get 100, 200 people to boycott and sales go down $4 million. Where's that money being invested to? Where's that money going? The point of the boycotts and the point of the protests, it is time for these ungracious politicians to start funding and invest the money back into our communities. When we spend our money, it goes to CPD, but it doesn't go back to our mental facilities. It doesn't go back to our public education system. It doesn't go back to our hospitals. It doesn't go back to youth programs or park districts. Because we have a mayor that sits at a desk that takes our money, the tax-paying dollars that we make, takes our money that cover up murders, that close mental facilities and schools. We set back, not only as African Americans, but as human beings. And I don't care what race you are, and I don't care how old you are. We sat back and we let a Jewish mayor take over our city. And he's been doing it for years. And we're actually going to sit here and continue to let him do it? Are we actually going to sit here and continue to let our taxpaying dollars go downtown and go to CPD? But then we go around and we screaming and hollering, oh, we want change. We need change. There's nothing going to change until we start thinking strategically about what is it that we need, what is our goal, what steps are we going to take to reach our goal, and why should people collaborate with us to work towards our goal?
Then let me pose that question.
Yep.
What are your needs? What are your goals? Because I'm going to ask this question. According to the Chicago Tribune investigation, they revealed since its creation of IMPRA, which Mayor Rahm Emanuel plans to replace, has largely failed to investigate police abuse and holding police officers accountable. IMPRA has cleared officers. Here are the stats. Tribune has found 20,451 police brutality cases, and a judge ordered has prevent full analysis, which was 7,473 cases. There were 2,143 cases with no affidavit, leaving only 5,330 to go forward. Few allegations of misconduct were upheld, which left 3,924 cases that settled by the city, which you was talking about, Mr. Clement. 132 cases sustained, but for lesser charges. Firing of the officers is a rare 6 cases. Mike, you posed that question. After hearing those stats that was released over the weekend, what would you say to that? What is your response? And I'll go down the line of that response. And we also got to figure this out, because I'm going to throw a buttload of questions at you about this judge who was sentenced for 21 years for making money off of youth like yourself. He was sentenced 21 years, and this case happened in Chicago. It was buried under the news. What is your response to all of this going on, and it's under our noses, and you say, find out what these people want. Well, you have politicians right there in front of you. They have ward nights. You can sit down and talk to them. Why are they not hearing you?
That's a good question. But like it just goes back to what I said earlier when it comes to this oppressed system that we are fighting that's out to get rid of African Americans. See, even though we're out screaming and yelling, oh, Rahm Emanuel needs to resign, Bruce Rauner needs to resign. You know, we're hollering about all these elected officials that needs to resign. Back to what I was saying, it is time for us to sit at the table and start writing legislative bills and policies to actually figure out what is it that we need. And once we start figuring out the things that we need, how are we going to go about getting
But
it?
not to cut you off, what do you need?
We need resources. We need money invested into our communities. Matter of fact, I honestly can say one thing that we need in communities is money. Money. And I'm saying that for a reason. When I say abolish the police and defund CPD, like I said, 40% of the city's budget, operation budget goes to CPD. Police make $4 billion a day. If we think about the way we spend our money, like I said earlier, the taxes goes to CPD. But when you think strategically about it, if the 40% of the city's operation budget goes to CPD and Rahm Emanuel closed 50 schools, what if that money didn't go to CPD? What if that money went towards the youth programs or organizations and campaigns that works with today's youth generation to strive towards positivity? What if that money went to them organizations like NAACP or Rainbow Push, just any organization that helps with these young people? What if that money went to all year-round jobs besides summer jobs? Because when you think about it, when it comes to today's youth generation, you can't kill nobody if you're at work. That's why every time you turn on the news, you hear about somebody dying that might be gang related. Where does it happen at? On the south and west side of the city of Chicago. You know why that happens? Because our public education system are teaching our kids that there's not enough land, food, and shelter to go around for our people. Only 5% of land is being used throughout the United States, and only 2% of land is being used throughout the world. But our schools teach our kids, no, there's no food. That's not enough food to go around. It's not enough land and shelter to go around. But I want to hit you with these numbers. Let's say if I make $1,400 a month, and that's poverty and slavery money. I make $1,400 a month, and I want to live an average life. Let's say if I get a house, my rent gonna be like $1,000. I get a car, the car is not gonna be at least $300. You want to drive something nice like a 2014 or 2015. You're looking at $1,300 a month. Got to pay for gas, maintenance. Probably looking at another $300 a month. Now you're at $1,600. You got a house, you got bills, utility bills, like gas. Probably looking at another $200 to $300 at least. So now you're at $1,900 a month. Get you a phone, got to pay your bill. Your phone bill gonna be at least $100 a month. You want a limited 4G LTE T-Mobile iPhone 6s Plus. So that's another $100 a month. Now you're looking at $2,000 a month. Let's say if you have a link card, we ain't no telling you're gonna have link cards in the future, but if you don't, you're probably gonna spend about $400 a month on food, just about, because I'm big and fat and tall. You feel? I'm looking at another $2,400 to $2,500 a month you have to spend. But oh wait, you want to go out and have a good time, and especially if you're smoking, you drinking, you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or if you're married, you want to go out and have a nice time on a regular day basis. Probably, what's that? Probably like another $500 you're gonna spend, especially if you smoke and drink. You're gonna spend another at least $500. So now you're looking at $3,000 you have to spend monthly. But keep in mind, you only make $1,400 a month. Now let's say this is me right here. If I have to spend $3,000 a month and only make $1,400 a month, where I'm gonna get the other $2,600 from? Guess what? I'm gonna go get that gun from out of my house, go put it to Mark head, and I'm gonna tell him, give me that iPhone 6 of yours so I can finesse it and pop it off and get $300 and go pay my bills. If somebody come in my house right now, just for example, if somebody come in my house right now and I was gangbanging and they tell me, put the gun down, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna put that gun on that table, and I'm gonna look at the person that told me to put that gun down. I'm gonna ask them, who's gonna pay my bills? In the African American community, we live in poverty. The state of Illinois is the #1 state throughout the world that's unemployed as far as African Americans. You can't kill nobody if you're at work. But if we know that we are fighting an oppressed system that runs off of hatred, corruption, and racism that won't allow us to sit at the table and write legislative bills and policies, what choice do we have? If we sit down with a mayor and we are dissatisfied with his leadership as mayor of Chicago, that will not provide all year-round jobs for the African American communities, what other choices do we have? One choice, abolish the police. Let's get rid of them. Public safety will look different. And if I'm not mistaken, up to 40% of crimes as far as gun violence and killings in Chicago has been solved since the beginning of 2016. But the killings in Chicago hasn't skyrocketed like this since 1992 in Chicago. First thing to come out the police's mouth, oh, there was no arrest made. It was gang related. He was African American. Oh, he was a thug. He was sagging his pants. His jail was saying he got tattoos all over his body. Everything that comes out the police's mouth is something negative towards the African American when it comes to gun violence and them being killed. Public safety will look different. If you ask me, I think it's the police that's behind many of the killers in our city. Because for up to 40%, and we up to almost 400 killed and up to 2,000 shot already. And it's what, the 7th month already? The 7th month. Last year we had 442 shot and killed, but we almost at the 400 mark in the 7th month. It is time for us as African Americans to understand that we have a $1.3 trillion spending power. If we learn how to manage our money and bring our black dollars together and say, forget the system, it's time for us to construct our own system. We won't have to worry about our young people and bodies dropping left to right. We won't have to worry about these unconscious politicians running over us and telling us, oh, you got to pay this much for rent, you got to pay this much for gas. We don't have to worry about any of these politicians or any of the criminal justice system, this broken public education system, and this public safety system. We won't have to worry about that because we got our own system. We are our own mayors. We are our own aldermen. We are our own police officers. It is time for African Americans to get out here and start policing their own communities. But we cannot do that if we don't come together collectively and unify on one accord, one note, and one agenda. It is time for us African Americans to start telling each other Black Lives Matter. Because obviously we don't see it amongst each other. We don't see it because we're killing each other so much. We're too black to see it. As African Americans, we are too black to understand we are killing each other. The truth hurt, but the lies heal, and the people refuse to tell the truth to one another, especially when it comes to a brother or a sister. They are scared to tell the truth. They are scared to hurt somebody. But it's time for us to start hurting each other on the inside. It is time for us to start killing each other on the inside and start telling the people the truth. It is time for us to stop sugarcoating stuff about what's going on throughout the United States and just getting right to the nitty-gritty and get straight to the point. That's what it's going to take for us to start building. But as far as the police, it's been said, it's time to abolish them. Politicians, it is time for us to start ignoring them. It is time for us to stop spending money downtown. That's the point of boycotting. We need that money invested back into our communities. If we're going to spend our money to your corporation, I expect you to give the money back to my community. And when you think strategically about it, if I go in my neighborhood, I live in Roseland. I go in Rose and I go to the gas station. The gas station is my grocery store. And who's behind that counter? It's an Arab. It's a white person. But if I ask them, what are you giving back to the community? What they're going to say? Nothing. And it's the same way with black people. I can get Mark behind the counter right now on 56th and Damon if I wanted to. But just because he's black doesn't mean he's going to give back to the community. Now, that's something we all need to be clear about. Just because we are the same skin color doesn't mean we all agree on the same things. We all walk the same path on two different shoes when it comes to achieving goals in our communities. But when it comes to these Arabs behind the counters, I'm not going to say get them from behind the counter. But if you're not going to give back to the community and I'll spend my money to your corporation, your institution, I don't want you behind that counter. And it's the same way that's going on downtown. The system is messed up economically, but boycotting, it's time for us to shut the money down. It's time for us to put the money back into our communities. But when we boycott, how's that money going to get back into our communities?
Roman, if I may,
I want go ahead because it points to what I said earlier. You talk about the Urban League.
Yeah.
You talk about Rainbow Push. You talk about the NAACP, and you talk about the Black Caucuses.
Yeah, sure. So I want to start off by saying you asked the question, why aren't they hearing us in respect to the protesters and talking about elected officials and business and civic leaders?
Correct.
I reject that premise.
Why?
They are hearing us. The reason that they're not, and I think what you probably are getting at and feeling and observing is that they aren't acting differently. They hear us. Lamont, there's not a black politician for sure inside this city or state who doesn't know your name and know that you live in Roseland. Their eyes are on you.
Exactly.
Because the moment you wake up and say, instead of going to that protest, I'm going to organize these people and look exactly what's happening in city council and look exactly at the root causes of why these things are happening in our community, then they know you have just awoken the power within you. See, power is the ability to act. This is what you have. This is what Jamal has. This is what inside the community have, which we haven't had in a long time. At least it's faces of it. But I want to stop for a second and talk about what I think is the have to happen. When I was a kid, I jumped in my dad's car and I started doing like this, and I started stomping on the gas, and I got down there and I kept stomping. The car wouldn't move, and I couldn't figure out why, because I didn't know that it took a little thing called a key to turn the ignition and then pull that lever down, and I could drive like he was doing. I think about that all the time, and I think about our communities. We do not understand how the system that we live under works. In the state of Illinois, we do not teach civics inside of a classroom. Our children do not understand the 3 branches of government. They do not understand how policy is actually created. Be honest with you, Lamont, I have to take issue with it, and that's fine, because you know some things that I don't know, and I know some things that you don't know. Right. The largest caucus, the largest group, we got groups inside these governments. The largest caucus inside the city council is the Black Caucus. The largest caucus inside Cook County government is the Black Caucus. The largest caucus inside the state of Illinois, General Assembly, it's the Black Caucus. You cannot pass anything in this big land, this big state, without the Black Caucus. But you did really speak about what you hit at what's really going on. Those folks are not black the way we see them. See, you think you're projecting, you think if you were in office as a black man, a young black man, you would look at the community and say, you know what, we need investment inside this community. We need to, people are earning a certain, wage and are able to purchase a home and send their kids to camp in the summertime so that they're not on the streets. But that's not what these folks are aimed at. These folks are being bought. Some of them are being rented by people with enough money to control their efforts. That is the way the system is working. So I don't just simply point at black lawmakers and say, you bought and you rented every last one of them, including the mayor. There's a man named Ken Griffin in this state, the richest man in this state. He pulls the strings on what happens in this city. If he wanted a lot of schools that were functioning, public schools, they would be functioning. He doesn't want that. So we've moved to a charter system, which charter is a for-profit education system. That's what it is. We quite frankly have probably just in this country got caught with our hand in the cookie jar. International, Turkey, a coup d'etat, coup was staged. And the man who was directly linked to financing this coup runs a charter school inside Illinois, inside Chicago. In fact, the most powerful man in this city, in this state, and perhaps over the country, one of the most powerful men in the country, the Speaker of our General Assembly, Michael Madigan, has went to Turkey 16 times. Now, I don't know what Illinois and Turkey has in common, but it was something that our Speaker had enough need to go there 17 times. And I think that's something the Speaker should address to us. I think that's something that we all should find out. So to your point, they're hearing us. Those politicians are hearing us every day. What they are afraid of is that we directly start to politically organize and identify what they have failed and start to run people against them. So we have an issue campaign going on with the police, right? And it's the most righteous campaign that we should have. It's the number one thing that our elected officials should be, charged with doing, and that's keeping the people safe. They failed horribly at that. But we have to broaden that issue campaign to economics, because at the end of the day, people that are doing well, people that are financially stable, you see it in every culture, every neighborhood. People are, you have people that are buying homes, people that are keeping their properties up because they're working hard for it. I tell you, everything that I work really hard for, I try my best to take care of it. My daughter broke my TV the other day. I was so upset because I cannot see me buying another TV pretty soon. But that's my baby. But imagine if that was the only thing that I had. My brother spent a lot of time in prison. And the few times that he did come home on vacation, he told me that if you took a toothbrush from him, he would kill you. That is not something that is unique to my brother, however. He's no crazy individual. He is operating in an economic environment. What means in economics, meaning a scarcity of resource to decisions that are made. He knew that if that toothbrush got taken, he probably wouldn't be able to get another one for a very long time, which means his teeth would fall out. He'd get sick. These are the things that happen directly in economic development. Where's the opportunity? The opportunity is in our grandparents' homes.
Mr. Clemens, you want to add to that?
Yes, I would say that there are many people that are working on legislation other than the Urban League.
But what are those legislations?
Well, legislation, I know that I spent many hours in drafting the legislation with CPAC. If it does get passed, I do know that I have spent many hours in helping to orchestrate legislation that deals with juveniles across the state here, as well as the death penalty. I think that the problem with Chicago is that there have been over 50 to 60 just dead years of bad politicians. And we have voted these bad politicians in office time in and time in again, and they have not been held accountable to provide back to its community. So therefore, they're looking at it that no one normally would come here and to demand us to do anything, forget you. Matter of fact, an Alderman Bill and several Aldermans out there in Roseland. You know, I'm not one to hold my tongue back, and I let them know I'm working against you due to the fact that you are against the people. Society let its guards down once it started to vote people into office based off of the skin of its color. That's where we fail, because there was no integrity. I can name Aldermans back to Virgil Jones, who they sold us out. They dumped waste in our community, and they made big bucks off of how they basically deteriorated our community. 50 all over in the Inglewood areas. They have had black aldermen ever since I have been a young child in the 60s. So the bottom line of it is, I don't think it has nothing to do with the skin color of the individual. It has everything to do with the integrity of the individual. And we ain't got no integrity because we keep putting the wrong people into office. They won't give you the opportunity, but they're willing to give a politician the opportunity who they know have been caught up into scandal after scandal after scandal, and they vote them in. One, and all I have to say is Mr. Mike Madigan. We have nothing in common with Mike Madigan. Mike Madigan is not in our best interest. So therefore, when I see Michael Madigan, I treat him like anyone on 63rd Street. Due to the fact
I'm a West Sider. I don't know what that means.
That's some good manners you have.
That means I'm treating him the same way as if I would treat anyone else who I took to be hostile. Those people are hostile towards us. This stuff didn't just start. It's been going on a long time.
All right, on that note, we ran out of time. Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you, Lamont, for sharing your story as well. And thank you, Willie Preston, your first time, actually all first timers on the IntellectualRadio.com. Don't be a stranger to the Drive at 5. Thank you for the drive. Hopefully you guys out there had plenty of information out there to go and legislate. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, Rhea Ray Harris, who is up next with Straight No Chasers. You guys have a wonderful week. Stay safe.